AI manages us already. The most simple example is traffic. We see the traffic lights, they'll guide us. But it's a very simple example. But we already see that companies are using it as well, especially now during COVID-19, the circuit breaker. You're following the algorithms telling you which movies you want to see on Netflix. You've chosen this kind of movies, they'll come up with more of these kind of movies. Of course, it's a business model. They try to get you in the system and use it more often. By the way, we're actually exploring also something that is counterintuitive to Netflix, because Netflix gives you more of the same once you've decided who you are. In a way, we're looking at algorithms that may give you a counterpoint of view, because there's also a narrowing effect, of course. If you use algorithms this way, you only keep doing or looking or reading what you like. You don't get to know the other parts of life. So we're also seeing whether we can train algorithms to bring in just opposite ideas so that you can explore broader points of view. But you see, algorithms can quickly have a guiding, directing function. The same thing with YouTube. It works in the same way. Makes you watch more movies. We also see that companies are starting to really focus on bringing in AI as a decision maker and looking and observing who are the best leaders, how do they act. And one way to do this is, for example, looking at neural imprints of successful CEOs to create highly efficient decision-making algorithms. AI is also being appointed in the board of directors, or when it comes down to compliance, governance. AI will become part of that, will become almost like an autonomous decision maker. And this is a picture of robots at an assembly line directing people. It's a cartoon, but it's out there. Amazon uses this. They have a warehouse tracking system where algorithms keep track of what you're doing, directing you, trying to motivate you to work harder, because based on your statistics, you're doing well, you're not doing well. But what is important here is they also have received discretion to fire you. So without any human involvement. So they're the decision maker. They're literally leading these teams at the warehouse tracking systems. And what is interesting is that during COVID-19, certain startups who've been working on that, on robots, on algorithms, who can be used for supervising tasks, the demand for that has increased by a factor 4. Companies want their people working remotely to be supervised, to be managed. So we see there's so much to be said. AI can move into a role where it will run an organization because of its traits, because it fits the requirements of a situation. We already see it happening in terms of its applications. But really running an organization of human employees, we should reflect a little bit more. And that's what I've been trying to do in the book. So usually what we see from a social science point of view is that when do we submit to authority? When we trust them. When we feel it's legitimate what they're deciding. When we feel like this is something well justified, well reasoned, and reasoning is going to be one of the issues, because as many of you know, that's a problem, for example, when we implement robots. Reasoning is a big problem for them. But that's when humans decide to follow a leader, to comply with its directives, when these things are there. And is this something that algorithms can provide? That should be the question. Because all of these things are usually evoked when a human sees a leader who is authentic, who can provide the right justifications, legitimate reasons, and there's a trust-building process going on. And there I would like to draw the distinction already between what I call artificial intelligence versus authentic intelligence. There are two types of AI today that we have to talk about, in my view. And also, this guy is really important, not the author, Cumberbatch, but Turing. He played in the role in the movie The Imitation Game. He played Turing's part. During World War II, Turing cracked the Enigma code of the Germans. And many of his ideas are still guiding today's AI development. So what we see there is that when we learn, humans learn, we observe, but we also learn the meaning. We understand the meaning. We can put it in perspective, and we can make inferences. So we end up with a bigger spectrum than only the observation itself. So Turing was known because he wanted to see, can basically computer, can he or she be intelligent? And he developed the Turing test, seeing that if you can't see the computer, you have a conversation, and you feel like, oh, this is a human, you can't make a distinction anymore. Yes, computers can be considered as intelligent decision makers because humans don't see the difference anymore. But the big thing there is that we learned this in his test by means of observation. We look at observations. And this is also how AI, for example, learns. When we look at machine learning, we feed them with examples. They learn features, we put it in vectors. We supervised learning, for example, or unsupervised learning where neural networks come in. It all works the same. They learn from observations and try to get the best optimal model out of it. Okay. And this raises a few questions. Can this be then seen as something that's authentic? Is this authentic leadership when we do it via an algorithm? Well, it looks like it, but it isn't. Hence why the movie used the imitation game. It imitates. And that's where we're going to run into a few boundary conditions when it comes down to having AI move into leadership roles. Just a simple example, this is a few years ago in Oregon in the US. A woman called 991 to report that there was someone breaking into the house. So she was really scared. The person picking up heard the voice saying, "Hi, could I order a pizza?" So the person said right away, "Yeah, I'm sorry, ma'am, but we're not a pizza house.